You mentioned the other day about Nick. Feel like he's got potential to have a better year this year. When you account that when you look at the film of his kicks last year, that maybe didn't quite go as you'd hoped.
Yeah, I base that statement that I think he'll do a little bit better, really on what I've seen from him this spring, not necessarily last year. I don't really know, although we've watched the kicks, he could tell me, pretty much, because it's hard to see on coaching film, that exact, and that you don't have that close-up speed shutter to show exactly how his foot's hitting the ball. I think, he just overstrided or understrided or, didn't get his hip around. Just very small technical things, almost like a jeweler working on a watch. They're really, really, really small, finite things. But the reason I said I thought he would do better is just his work ethic, and he was coming off a little bit of an injury. He had some off-season things that he had to rehab from at the end of last season. So it could have been a little bit more of a health issue. And he's doing he's doing really well. He's been charting well, and he's improving all the time. So he's got the same guys to work with. This will be 3 years in a row. That makes a difference. And he's a real quality pro. Like anybody, and he's still in this prime, he should keep improving.
What have you seen out of Chris Russo and Walt Powell in terms of their kick return ability?
They've done really well. Of course, there's no live bullets on this deal. So, but they've been flying up in there. They both have really good speed. Chris, I'd base most of it off of. He hadn't had many opportunities, but he had a really good game doing it. I think Walt is a good returner. I thought he did a good job in college, real good job. He had a couple of gaffes last year that a lot of rookies have when, it's a different deal, even though, he's got to catch a ball. It's just a different deal for him. And most rookies struggle to some extent on that. And he had his struggles, but I think he's really good. And I think T.J. Graham is a really good kick returner. He can fly, and he's really tough. And I thought he was a really good player last year, exceptionally good in the coverage. And he didn't return very much, but out here, he's a real fine athlete, and I think a real good competitor. He showed it on teams last year for sure. Any other questions?
How confident are you that Quigley can stick? I know that's a position where it can change very quickly. Guys who play well, not a guaranteed contract. Does he look like a guy who can stick, or is there a chance that camp goes by and someone else?
Well, I think that there's always competition, and there's always guys that maybe could be released because of whatever that the organization might find is better than him. So no one's ever guaranteed anything that way. But I think he, like Nick, from what I've seen, he's gotten a lot more consistent on hitting the ball, striking the ball. And that's his only deficiency, I'd say, from a year ago, because his talent level's there and his ability to hit a big ball is there. He just needs to be more consistent, and he's demonstrated that so far. So he's done well. Jacob Shum has done real well. They both punted pretty good. So we'll see what happens, under duress and under competition. But I think both of them are doing a good job. I'm happy with all the specialists, really. We have to get into live action really to see what the returners will do, because they gotta fly into the coverage, and it's one on none, easy for anybody to fly into it. Guys coming at you, that's a little different ball game. So we have to see what their demeanor is in a confrontational situation.
Quigley was a matter of ball or he said that he was just striking.
Well, I mean, I just looking at and talking about last year's, yeah, sometimes he just wouldn't strike the ball due to an inconsistency of how he was swinging his leg or how he was dropping the ball, what he was doing with his hand. I mean, just a little bit of twitch with your little finger or thumb will drop that thing, and it'll, because you only have to miss a little bit to just like anything else. You got to hit it sweet spot on sweet spot, and then if anything's off. And I think that's the only thing that, of course, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. But that's what he's got to work on. That's what he has worked on, and he's done well. He's done real well.
This may be somewhat of a repeat, but I'm curious, what was your reaction? Were you surprised that the PAT was moved back, or did you kind of see it going that way when they were experimenting last year?
No, they asked me just the other day. That was in that room. Yeah, the last thing he said, what do you think they'll do? And I said, I think they'll move it to the 15. So I thought that's what they would do. So I wasn't surprised at all. I thought that was a slam dunk.
How will that affect?
Why did they do it?
I mean, no,
I don't know.
No. Why did you think it was a slam dunk? Just because it has been too automatic?
Because it's got a lot of, it's got a lot of, public opinion and
Buzz.
media buzz. It's I can't remember who said it, but it's the most powerful, the most influential thing in the world. And there was too much momentum to not do anything. And that's the most logical thing to do. I don't like any rule changes per se, but that one makes the special teams a little more important. It's a little more difficult to make it. It's a little more strategic now on what you're going to do on that play. We were just talking about it a minute ago with Megan that, if we have a real bad weather day, that 2-point conversion may be a more probable make than a 33-yard field goal. Well, if it's more probable and you get twice as many points, that's got to play into your thinking. So there's going to be, there'll be a lot of things that come into play every time you do this. There's more things to look at. There's more things to scrutinize. I'm talking about those decisions. We've gotten to where we scrutinize whether you take the ball or don't take the ball to open the game, and whatever. But that'll be a big one, I think. That'll be a big one, especially if somebody misses. They come back and they do it again. They miss again. Oh man! So it'll put that play in a premium because it'll get a lot of publicity. Whenever there's a lot of publicity, there's a lot of pressure.
I'll take a few more.
Jay Feely raised an interesting point that those plays now, those extra points, are actually going to be true field goal attempts now, where guys are rushing hard, whereas on the extra point, not as much because that was such a tougher chance to block it. And then, he said, look, the league is worried about player safety, and here you're putting in X number more of plays where you have the offensive line block guys at risk. I mean, do you think that's a valid point? I mean, is that something that, is it the other side of this here?
I think all the rules that the league has made. I talked to Bruce about this just the other day. All the rules that the league has made in terms of player safety, injuries to the head, and all that. I mean, I think they've been fantastic. I don't think I think they've done enough for player safety. I guess they could do more. I don't know what, but I think they've really addressed the issue of head injuries. You wouldn't want to take contact out of the game. We'd be playing soccer. I would assume, but I think they've addressed all the issues. I think they've done a good job of trying to ensure that a player doesn't sustain a head injury, and I think they've done really good. And I haven't even thought about a safety issue on that particular play. However, they have in the past done things on that play. I mean, they take a guy off the center, which was a huge safety issue. The guy's got his head between his legs, and you could have a guy like Vince Wilfork rushing him, and a guy like Pepper Johnson behind him pushing. They've done all those things already. So I think they've addressed the issue on field goal to a strong degree. Although I like Jay Feely.
And it becomes a blockable play. I mean, it becomes like, because they have to kick up.
Well, I think
Lower line drive on a 30, is it a significantly lower line drive on a 33 than it is an arc on a 20?
it's probably the same kick. But yeah, it could be, and it can be. The thing where I think you pick up a little more pressure on the kicker is how many people are going to fake from the 15 for 1 point. You might fake from the 15 to get a chance to get a first down to maybe get 3, or a chance to maybe get 7. The fake from the 15-yard line is a pretty tough fake to make from a field goal formation. Not 1 point, 2 points, I'm sorry. So I think there'll be more pressure on that kick. And then the other thing is, if you've had, you ready for me to step down, aren't you? Okay, just checking with you. If you had from the 15-yard line last year, you took every field goal from the 15, I think there was like 28 of them that the ball was on there. Next year, if teams score, say they average 40 touchdowns across the league-wise, with 32 teams, my math's not great, but that's over 1,200. There's going to be a lot more misses, and the pressure's going to be more. So I think it's going to be a real influential play. I think pushing it back, they said they wanted to get that play back in the game. I think they achieved the goal, because I think it definitely puts it back in the game in terms of when you miss, that whole deck gets reshuffled. It's not a 7.7 and a reliable on 7. That deck gets shuffled. And then the other thing is, when it's really windy, like I said, or rainy or whatever, is it more probable that we can make a 2-yard gain with our offense, or is it more probable that we can kick it through from that distance? Then you got a whole different set of criteria for the head coaches and for the fans and everybody to pick apart. Because the challenge in football, I mean, people like to, that's part of the game. That's part of the clients that we have. They like to second guess and see everything and pick it apart and have a better answer. And it's all part of the game. I mean, it's a beautiful part of the game, really, because it puts pressure on you, and if you've got pressure on you, you're going to try harder to do well.
Coach, I have a question for you. It's a little bit out there.
Well, I like to philosophize. I don't know if you noticed that, but
That's why you're the perfect man to answer.
okay.
We talk about this all the time, with my coworker. At this level, you got the best athletes in the world. Why is it so hard to find you'd save a roster spot if you had the same guys, your kicker and punter? Why is it so hard, and why is that unheard of for teams to do that?
You know what? I'm not sure I understand the question. Why is it so hard to keep a roster spot for the kicker and the punter?
To have one player do both jobs.
Oh, I got you. Well, I think there's no logical answer outside of there's a different swing motion, and the guys aren't as competent when they have to do 2 different swing actions. But I think the main reason is some of the great kickers and punters that have come out of college that have done that, the Russell Erxlebens, Steve Little maybe is another guy, they haven't done very well. They just haven't done very well. And it takes so much work for the field goal kick, because now, I mean, if you look at the guys that were Lou Groza, Jim Balkin, guys that are potential, Jan Stenerud, that is in the Hall of Fame, those Hall of Fame type guys that kick field goals. I mean, they're Matt Barr, was a great kicker. They're like 69%, 70%. They can't make it today. I mean, if you're not over 80, they're looking to run you out. So it's a real fine skill, and I think people feel that you need, and it's a big play now because the competition is so close. It's going to win and lose a lot of games. I think that's the reason. But I think the failure of guys to be able to do it in the past, and the where you're going to lose a little bit more than anything is on the field goals, and they'll be off a little bit here and there, and you can't afford to be off now. At one time you could, like I said, Jim Bakken. I'd have to look it up. Who's a great kicker for the Cardinals? I bet he was no more than, I almost guarantee he was less than 70%. And he was considered the great of the greats. He couldn't even play now.